Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Demystifying Pwin and How to Know When Deals Are Wired. My name is Chloe Norwood and I am the Field Marketing Specialist at Visible Thread. I'm so excited to introduce Alexa Tsui to all.
Like a couple days before the end of the government fiscal year. No problem. Everything's fine. It's all fine.
Everybody's
no problems.
Perfect. Well, everybody, before we begin, I would like to note that our annual VT Summit will be on Wednesday, November 1st at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center. The summit will be a one-day in-person event full of informative sessions, panel discussions, and product updates. There is a registration link in the related free content box on this page. Register today as we are getting ready to launch our agenda and more information to come. We would love to see all of you there. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Feel free to submit your questions into the Q&A box. The slides and recording of this webinar will be available after it ends. And now I will hand it over to Alexa.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chloe. I appreciate it. And my last name is pronounced Choi. I just had to say that because everybody messes it up. I mean, I totally understand. Hi, Ten. Hi, friends. And there's going to be so many people on this call that I know and love in the industry. And I'm super happy to have all of the industry titans, all the new people, all people in the middle, you know, wherever you are in your GovCon journey. Thank you so much for taking your time out to listen to my malarkey. I have to say, out of the gate, first of all, thank you to Visible Thread for asking me to do this and having the confidence that I would have something to talk about, hopefully. And also to MetaPhase for sponsoring me as just, you know, Alexa, giving me all the leeway to do all of these types of things and getting out there. So I'm Alexa Tsui. I work for MetaPhase Consulting, Digital Services, Digital Enablement Lead, which means basically front side of the sales process, helping solve problems with technology. I'm a 17-year veteran of the industry, and I had a very interesting journey where I started out in market intelligence, and then I went into BD and capture post a career in market intelligence. So I think I have a different way of approaching the market. So hopefully we have some good comments, some interesting discussions today, and some fun things. So with that, we'll go ahead and move it forward. So the first thing I need to know is who's all here today. Where are you in your journey? Are you like an expert? Are you kind of like middle? Are you brand new? So please click ABC and let me know kind of like where we are, and we will watch the numbers come in. Hopefully people click on the buttons. Please join. Please click buttons. I'll go back just in case. Let's see, Tyler. Hey, Tyler. 5 years here. Janine, thank you for telling me that. Yeah, if you guys want to click the buttons, then we'll know. All right. Okay. This is good. All right. So we got a few new people, a lot of people in the middle of the road, and then people like Tan, who knows all the things. Yep, I got it. Cool. Perfect. That's kind of what I expected. I feel like when I look at the industry, there's a lot of folks who've been in the industry for maybe 5-ish years, right? And then there's people that have been in there for their entire careers, 20 plus, the Ton Wilsons of the world. And then there are a few people that are like, I'm kind of new, but I'm trying to learn. And then there are people that are actually not in BD and capture at all, but just want to know how the things are done. So I know that the MetaPhase recruiting team's on the call. So thank you for letting me bore you with my details. Hope everybody learned something. And I was actually hoping that some government folks would attend too, because understanding the process that we go through will probably actually help inform the acquisition process, I think, as like a reverse industry kind of a thing, but that's just my own thoughts. All right, so today we're gonna address 4 things, and probably from like a problem statement sort of a point of view. The first one is, your boss wants you to give him a Pwin, which I wrote here, it stands for percentage of win. I realize that a lot of people call it probability of win. Are we gonna win? Probably, right? And so we're going to get behind what that means and how do we get to the actual number itself, so that way you're giving a forecast number that's not complete lies. And then number 2 is, you want to bid on something, but it seems wired. You're not sure if there's other companies lined up for it. And number 3, you want to get better at the BD capture approach and the difference, but you're not really sure what the difference is or how to get better. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, everybody's favorite topic, problem statement number 4, there's a lot of tools out there. GovWin and BGov and Federal Compass and Visible Threat is a tool too. We'll talk about that, you know, and when do you use them? How do you use them? Is BGov better? Is GovWin better? You know, those are things that I spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about. So I'm going to touch on those as well. So, and I want to say I would love for everybody to keep putting things in the chats. I'm seeing 20 years in BD. Cool. I'm new to buttons. It went away too quick. It's all good. Long time BD. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I want this to be sort of like, you know how when you do karaoke at a bar and you pick a song that everybody knows because you know that you're not going to be the only guy or gal up there singing it, kind of like Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard. You'll know the entire bar is going to sing with you. That's kind of how I'm hoping that this presentation goes. I want like everybody to pitch in and kind of tell me how they do it, especially if you're an expert in the field, because honestly, I feel like this is more of an art than a science. It's definitely more of an art than a science. That's facts, right? Like everybody has their own way of doing it, and everybody approaches the problem statements a little bit differently. So would love to. I'm going to keep the chats up here, and I'm going to keep reading them off. So we're going to get started. Okay. Before I talk about Pwin, I would be doing my entire industry a disjustice if I didn't talk about the gate process. So I have a very good friend in the industry. She's really well known. I don't think she's on this call, but she showed me a staggering statistic about companies that don't gate versus companies that do gate opportunities. Yeah, me too, Matthew. Doing this for years. Still learn something new every day. Absolutely. So I don't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but it was something like companies that have a strong gate review process win 50% more work. So that's why I think I had to start out talking about gate reviews before I started talking about Pwin. So let me back it up for the folks that are maybe not in IT services, because this is what we're talking about today. And I see somebody said very different from manufacturing. Absolutely, it's very different. And so today's chat that we're going to have is 100% focused on IT services. Cool, Gustavo, we're happy to have you. Okay, we got our first question. How do you get around the one or two people who really want this but aren't honest in their assessment? Can they stretch the truth? All right, Rachel, I'm glad you brought that up. We need to talk about the gate review. We need to talk about who needs to attend it, how does it work? And you know, in this presentation, I'm going to be talking a lot about where I work right now. MetaPhase does things a particular way, which I think they do a great job of. Other companies do it differently. I actually was lucky enough to be a mentor protege to a very large business, so I've seen very large business ones. And then the company I worked with prior to MetaPhase was a much smaller business, so we had a more agile gate review process. So it's highly dependent on your company, but before you even get in front of executives or proposal managers or operations people or anybody else, I think your gate zero needs to start with you, right? Your gate zero needs to be in your head, right? Because you have to think like you're always the dealer. Your job is to find opportunities, uncover them, bring them to the table. But like you need to be truthful with yourself. So the very first question, how entrenched is the incumbent? Is there an incumbent? Do they love their incumbent? Does the incumbent have a sneaky JV that is sitting on the vehicle where they can actually use that to bid? So with the rise of JVs, there should be like a new movie called The Rise of Joint Ventures in Government Contracting, because it's wild out there, y'all. Wild. But like sometimes people forget that, right? They're like, oh, the incumbent's 8A expired. It's coming out on 8A Stars 3, so don't worry about it. We got this in the bag. Oh, okay, but there's a lot of JVs out there. So just getting ahead of the JV question is really important. Also, I also was talking about other competition. Alaska natives, right? If you're going to compete with an Alaska native, you have to know what you're getting yourself in for, right? They bid billion-dollar past performances with they can actually have cost models where they can bid with a very low wrap rate. So you're talking low wrap rate, billion-dollar past performance, and also they have some of the best proposal writers in the business. So you're up against a really tough competition. Okay, so then the next one is the price to win trade-off. So depending on how your company's positioned, price to win is like a new hot term in the market, right? 8As don't always have to recert if they hold the IDIQ. That's actually big facts. Steve, actually, that's a good point. What is a joint venture explanation of the acronyms for a newbie? Thanks. Oh, Jennifer, sure, absolutely. JV stands for joint venture, which means there are two different ways of doing it, where you can find a company that is a bigger company. They pair with a smaller business, usually one that has a status. So 8A, service disabled veteran owned, or one of those. The big business comes behind that company and they create a brand new company. So for example, I work for MetaPhase, and if we were going to joint venture with a company called, I don't know, just pick one out of the blue, Mantech. So Mantech and MetaPhase, maybe we'll call it Manphase. Worst JV name of all time. That was totally off the top of my head. Hopefully I made somebody laugh. So that's what a joint venture is. When you create a completely new entity, it's a new company, it has a new SAM registration, but then, interestingly enough, that company can bid small business deals using the large business past performance, telling the story of how those two companies are coming together. I saw the rise of this probably about, I'd say 8 or 9 years ago, when the government started doing these. And Phase Man, I like Phase Man. That's a good one, Eric. But yeah, it really does change the industry, and it changes how you bid on things, right? It changes the competition, and I'll tell you where it really changes the game: vehicle bids. And we're going to talk about vehicle bids in a minute. But let me come back to the gate or not to gate. The question is up to you. When you take an opportunity in front of your executives, and we do a gate review here at MetaPhase where we get in front of the executives of the company, and ultimately what we're trying to do is get buy-in, right? You're trying to get buy-in from the company. They're like, yes, this is good. It aligns with where we're trying to go. It aligns with what we're wanting to grow in. And I think you've got the capture process locked down, and you've also got the BD stuff handled. So keep going, and this is how I can help. So that's a really important meeting that needs to happen before you start moving things forward. When do you do it? How often do you do it? Do you come back to this whole gate review thing at different cycles? That's all highly dependent on the company that you work for and your strategy. Later on this presentation, I talk about strategy, and there's different ways of going about this market. So the very last one here is called shaping. I wanted to tell you that, and we're going to talk about how to know if things are wired. If you're not in front of the contracting officer, the program people, kind of like helping shape how it's coming out, you're probably not going to win. Listen, I'm not saying you can't win. I'm just saying probably not. I'm going to come back to that word probably, because we're talking about a probability of win. It's your job as a BD person or a capture person to forecast for the company, whether you're going to win or not. And that's what Pwin stands for. And I put this funny little meme here because sometimes you get so bought into like the fact that you can win, and when you lose, you're just like, well, probably could have picked that out of gate 0. Should have, not done that. So I actually saw something come out today. I'll tell you guys this, just between us. I really wanted to vet it, and in our gate review, my CEO and the other owner of the company was like, I think it's wired, guys. I think somebody else has this. And I was kind of sad and frustrated. But when the award notice came out today, I was like, they were right the whole time, right? So you kind of have to get outside of your own way of thinking and get into the thinking of like from an executive point of view, because ultimately you want to be looking at this as an entrepreneur, right? If this was your business, would you be cool chasing this down? All right, the gate review. So what do you guys talk about in a gate review? Or if you're a new company and you don't even have a gate review process, you need to have 3 different parts to it. Number 1, do we know this customer? Well, actually, we're going to get to the customer part. Number 1, can we do this work? Have we done this work? Do we have the resources? Does it make sense? If the answer to those questions is no, that's a 50% piece of this, in my opinion. This is Alexa's brain, right? And I know it's a little bit crazy in Alexa's brain, but if you have never done this, you don't have the resources, and it doesn't make sense, you should walk away from it immediately. However, if you say, you know what, we have done this type of work, we do have the resources, and if we don't, we can find them, right? And it does make sense. Well, then you move on to number 2. Is this smart growth? For example, if you're a company, lost the presenter. Is it just me? Hopefully, Tom, I come back for you. Should we do this? Is it smart growth? If you're a company that's trying to grow a digital services type of a company and somebody comes to you and asks you, would you like to be on our team? We want you to lead the entire help desk piece of this, right? 100 people, 100-person help desk, tier 1, 2, 3, and you're a digital services company that's trying to focus on agile software development. So when you think about a help desk, the only part of that that's really could be considered app dev is probably tier 3, and only in some cases. So you'd have to ask yourself, does it make sense from a smart growth perspective? Yeah, no, go factor. Yeah, it is, Rachel. It's very similar to that. Yep. And I think the more important one here is, can we solve this problem for the customer, right? You want to make sure that you're looking at it from the best, like, partnership possibility to the federal government, right? We're all stewards of tax dollars here. And the third one that I think is very important, I think more important than should we do this, is, does the customer know us? Can we win? Have we done the BD capture? Do they know the company? And then also the third one, black hat intel. We call it black hat intel, right? Competition. And the reason why we call it black hat is because during our gate review processes, we kind of suss out, what are other people doing? How are they going to bid this? What is their solution going to look like? And then we try to, like, back into, okay, well, if I know Deloitte's bidding on this, which they probably are, who are they teamed with, and what's their solution going to be, and how can we kind of like get our solution around whatever they're going to do? So we spend a lot of time talking about that in solutioning sessions. So if you take a look at it, you just have to come up with a number: 50%, 20%, 20%, which I'm not good at math. I think that equals 100. So now we're going to go to next slide. Anybody have any questions so far? I break this down into 5 questions. Is it real? Is it attractive? Can we win? Can we bid it? Can we deliver it? Yeah. No, I think those are great questions, Michael. And if that's your gate review process, I think it makes sense. Is it real and is it attractive? Those are good. Those are great ones. So Michael, I'm glad you put that in there. We have another question here: is, how do you determine your Pwin? And if you guys want to click, I'm going to leave it here because then I realized if I move my slides, you guys can't click. So click A, B, or C and tell me how you determine your Pwin. I like B, by the way. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. Which, by the way, number C is funny, because I think even if that was the case, I don't know that anybody would admit that. Oh, but somebody did. Okay, perfect. Thank you for admitting that. And it's incumbentitis is a whole different presentation, of which I would love to get into at some other point. And if you guys really enjoyed this presentation, and if you want to keep listening to my malarkey and me talking, I could do another one of these that focuses on incumbentitis and a few other things that I feel like I could probably add some thoughts to. But I'm glad you guys do have, most of y'all have a method. It's important. Like I said, it changes the game if you have a strong gate review process. And the stronger your gate review process, the higher your Pwin will be, the higher your bid, like your win rate's going to be. So it's extremely important to have a plan. A ton. I love to be incumbents. Don't we all? Don't forget the relationship behind those questions. Does the client know you, and how well does it align with your marketing plan? Yeah, Rachel, I think I could have a whole other presentation around marketing in the federal government space anyways. I think it's a really good question. So this is the wrap-up slide for calculating Pwin. And I want to tell you something important. You need to subtract 10% off your numbers off the top, because you're the dealer. So, you're always going to have a higher Pwin than somebody that's looking at it. So, for example, at MetaPhase, there's some wonderful people working here. One of them is the finance person. And she always comes in and asks the right questions. I'm always like, why is she asking that? I don't have that answer. But that's important to hear those questions, right? Like, if you don't have it in the bag, you don't have it in the bag. And you can kind of tell yourself all you want. But I always do, when I put my Pwins together, I always step 1, 2, 3 in my head, come up with the numbers, subtract 10% off the top, and then I'm like, does that sound right? Okay, cool. Put it in there, go with it. Appreciate that, Michael. All right, anybody have any questions on calculating Pwin? I think I've done a lot of talking about this. Nope. Okay. So sales forecasting for government contracting, probability of win. So I've seen a Lamborghini rolling around the area. His license plate says Pwin 100. I'm always like, man, what a baller, man. It's awesome. All right, cool. Next thing we're going to talk about is wired deals. How do you know things are wired? So this is why I wanted acquisition folks on the call, because I think sometimes they do things inadvertently and we're reading the tea leaves, right? I think I could retitle this whole slide as like reading tea leaves. The quickest ways to know when something is wired for somebody else. Lockout criteria is number one, right? When you're reading the solicitation and it says, I'm trying to think of like a really good example. You need a CMMI level 3 for services, for dev, ISO 27000. You need to be an 8A. You have to be able to hop on one foot while being blindfolded while one hand's tied behind your back. Then that's some good lockout criteria, right? Lockout criteria is something that every single one of us tries to get in the proposal during the shaping phase. We all do it. All of us are culprits, right? We want to get in front of the customers, get in front of the contracting officers and say, hey, you know what I think this needs? This needs ServiceNow Premier Partnership requirement at the prime level and only past performance provided by the prime. So and then if the contracting officer reads that and it's like, wow, what a good idea. If I put that in there, maybe instead of getting 100 bids, I'll only get 5. I'm going to put that in there. So lockout criteria, the minute that you read it, you're going to know. And I'll tell you how you know. You're going to read it and be like, oh crap, I don't think I can do this. I don't think we meet the criteria. Lockout criteria. That's lockout criteria. Heavy personnel requirements that read like an individual's resume. Yes, we're going to get to that. However, but Matthew, there are some exceptions to that, and I'll get to it. So short turnaround time. If the government puts out a proposal and there's a 7-day turnaround time, I usually assume it's completely wired, especially on vehicle bids. And I'm going to say one more thing about vehicle bids. They do like to have a short turnaround time, but usually by and large, it's 2 weeks. So if you see the Narcissist Cafe, oh my goodness, Dustin, hysterical. Dustin works for MetaPhase. Dustin, thank you for attending. That's hilarious. I appreciate you even being here. What is your secret sauce to get that lockout criteria into the solicitation documents? So, Jeff, that's a great question, and I'll tell you what it is. I think contracting officers don't get a lot of love. By the way, they have like the worst job, right? Give your contracting officers a lot of love and have them trust you, have them like you, know who they are up front, and then they're going to listen to what you say. You're going to be like, hey, I really feel like we need to add this. They're going to be like, yeah, you know what? You might be right about that. And you know, you just kind of have to know the game, right? So the struggle with the contracting office is they don't have a tight connection with the program office most of the time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But then on the vehicle bids, sometimes GSA is running the whole thing. So then you have even more of an advantage working with that contracting officer because they might not even run your things by the program office. So my advice to you, Jeff, would be get in tight with the CL. My personal favorite is a 100% requirement for LOIs and resumes. You know, Matthew, I'm going to go ahead and talk about key personnel next because it is actually the next bullet on my thing here. You're absolutely right. If you see something that's like, we need this exact person, here's the resume, you know, the resume type of requirements, or like they have to have a CISSP plus like all these crazy things, then you're kind of looking at it like, they might have somebody in mind. However, I have to say on behalf of the contracting, the 1102 staff that I know that are super awesome, a lot of times they don't have time to redo things. So sometimes they have to take things like maybe somebody's resume and strip things out of it and flip it into key personnel requirements out of necessity rather than it being completely wired. And that would plug into my incumbentitis conversation. And like Tan said, Tan is somebody that will chase down incumbent work, which is awesome, Tan, to do that. because there's always a way in. And if you assume like, oh, it's wired, I'm not going to bet it. Could it be just that the contracting officer didn't have the time to redo everything and start from scratch? Because they really don't. LOI for the new people. I wanted to explain what that is really quick. Letter of intent. I think that's what it stands for, if I remember correctly. So basically, it's what they're basically saying is, along with resumes, you have to have a letter stating that the key personnel are going to actually come to this proposal. So I was actually a part of the SEC 1IT vehicle for a long time, and I did a lot of presentations about key personnel to the SEC. So they said, you know, Alexa, we don't want to keep hiring incumbent companies. We actually want to bring new people in, and we don't want to have the same key personnel over and over and over, but we don't know how to do the process differently. So listening to the government folks, it's kind of like, I understand that this is also a challenge for them too. So I wouldn't take the key personnel one as 100%. I would kind of look at all of these combined and then decide, like, as a combination, how wired do I think it is, right? And if you think about wired being a sliding scale, yeah, they have an incumbent, they like them, maybe that's a sliding scale wired of like 20%. It's not particularly wired if it's a 20%, right? You still have an 80% chance here, right? So another sign of a wired biz, technical requirements are copied and pasted from a competitor's website. Well, yeah, I think that's a good point, Michael. If I saw that, I'd be like, eh. As a former core and requirements writer, we did this about 90% of the time. Letter of intent. Yes, exactly. Yes, letter of intent. So, I mean, key personnel is critical because let me tell you what happens. And everybody on this call knows. Well, I mean, everybody that does this for a living knows for a fact that you have a great resume, right? But that great resume is being bid as key on 7 different opportunities. So if one of those drops and hits, he's got to go over there. So what do you do for the 6 other ones, right? So exactly, Michael, you're talking about bait and switch, and that's kind of like where I was leaning with that conversation. Is it's kind of hard for us on the contracting side too, when so many of the key personnel requirements are so stringent, but it's not like we have a whole cadre of those folks sitting around, right? So, all right, let me keep moving on, but you guys keep typing in stuff in the chat because this is all good talks, right? So vehicle bids, what I was going to say is a lot of times they have a quick turnaround. I wouldn't take it, if that was the only piece to the puzzle, I probably wouldn't think it was wired unless it was 7 days. 7 days is a sure sign. And then the other thing I have to say about vehicle bids is if it's not your deal, it's not your deal. Like if you're not chasing it, aware of it, know about it, talking to the CEO, talking to the customers on the program side, if you're not literally ahead of it way before it hits a vehicle, if the first time you're seeing it is when it drops on Star 3, it's not your bid. Walk away. Walk away. Okay. A lot of times also there's agency leadership turnover, which changes the game. And this is a new question for me. And I love the person that was like, I've been doing this for so long, but I learned something new every day. This is something that I've learned, is like to ask those questions. What's been changing at the leadership level that might impact this program moving forward, right? And those things, especially moving into a year where we're going to have an election. I mean, I know that that's going to be part of my just keep swimming. That's like my motto. But that's going to be part of my talk track as I look at these different opportunities for my FY24, right? All right, I'm almost done with the slides. So have an eagle eye, like you literally have to read every single thing in the RFQ or RFP. I actually have a feeling that people that read really, really well and like comprehension level is high have a new superpower, right? Because even focusing to reading these days is pretty tough. So, and then the last one on my list here, and all my BD people and capture people will be like, she's right, is you need to take every single call that comes in. I get a lot of calls from people that are like, hey, Alexa, I just want to chat about this one thing really quick. I can tell you the biggest deals of my entire career have happened from taking calls when other people might have been like, I don't know that company. It looks like a cold call. It looks like a cold email. Take the call, get in front of people especially on deals that you're chasing. Even if your team is completely locked up, you have no work share to give, somebody wants to meet with you, take the meeting. Because 9 times out of 10, they're having different conversations than you, and they know things that you don't know. So I ran capture on Evolve, Department of State Evolve for MetaPhase, and I was on, I don't even want to tell you how many times I gated that opportunity, like 22. And I think overall I started to count at the beginning, but I probably lost count, like 80 something teaming calls about it. So, but every single one of those calls just helped me understand a little bit more about what is industry thinking? How are other companies bidding? And how are we thinking this is going to like shape and look? And at the end of the day, we're kind of competimates, right? We're competitors, but we're teammates, and we're in this together. So it does make sense to kind of take the time to talk to people and kind of get the read of the room as well as reading the tea leaves. All right, moving on. Okay, your deal just dropped. Visual Thread has a discovery dictionary set up that should, oh my gosh, Visible Thread is such a dope tool, y'all. This is facts. Tan, thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah, if you guys are not users of Visible Thread, I would definitely look into that. Okay, your deal just dropped 3 months early. Incumbent has a joint venture and can bid the recompete. 6 key personnel, very tailored asks. Customer knows your company, but you have no intel. Solution would be generic. Do you? A, bid low price, shot in the dark, technical. B, walk away, in fact, maybe run. Or C, Hail Mary, give it all you got. What do you think? What do we do? What do we do here, friends? What would you do if this was your top deal? And I'm saying like executive eyes are on it. And by the way, when I was typing this, I was like, oh my gosh, this has actually happened to me before. So I'm going to give everybody like 30 minutes. Okay. Yeah. and you know, this, I'm going to hint again at some foreshadowing for what's happening later in this presentation where I talk about strategy. There are different strategies to approach this business. And I cannot tell you that one is better than the other because they all work. And I'll tell you why. You can do every single thing right and still lose. You can do every single thing wrong and still win. So like I said, it's more of an art than a science. So there are 3 different strategies I'm going to talk about later on a slide. And if your strategy is Hail Mary bid, give it all you got. Hey man, as long as you've decided that up front and that's the kind of strategy you got, can't be mad at you. 100% leadership would still want to go for it though. And actually, Nicole, it's so funny. That's how I back into my decisions too. I'm like, hey, they're not exercising an option year. It means they hate the incumbent. We totally got this, right? But remember, earlier in the thing here, right? There was like, oh, the consequences of my own executive dysfunction. Yeah, so you're the dealer. You're always going to want to bid. All right, next slide. It's but okay, growth, your company growth, REMEM. Yeah, okay, I spelled that right, sorry. Maybe I like look at words and you're like, did I actually spell that right? Growth equals the amount of times you said yes when you could win and no when you couldn't. This statement right here, if you remember nothing else from this chat, this is 100% gold. Because if you said yes when you can win and no when you couldn't, you'd have a win rate of 100%. So if you actually think there's an inkling that you can't, probably you shouldn't. Hail Marys work, and it's only if you have, all right, hold on. Have a model for bid evaluation that uses independent numbers. Not only that will allow you to fill out the no-hopers, but also train the BD execs to behave differently and prepare accordingly to get past the gate review. I've used this model to convince an executive who wanted to go for it to actually back off and agree it's not a good deal. Yeah, Steve, no, I like it. So basically you're saying like have a strategy for your gate reviews. Absolutely. I actually created a bid to no bid kind of tool that I could send anybody on this call. Hit me up on LinkedIn, tell me you want it, I'll send it to you. But basically it has like all the weighted factors in an Excel spreadsheet of all the questions, and then you just put in the different numbers and it will give you a number at the bottom. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, I think what you're saying is, Steve, is have a process, right? Step 1, have a process. Step 2, use the process. Those are always good places to start. But what if your organization is adverse to formal gate reviews? you should tell them that there's been research done on this and that companies that have a strong gate review win 50% more work. It is a fact. I would, Steve, I would try to convince them otherwise. That's what I would do. Okay, we're kind of shifting gears a little bit since we're at kind of like the half of the hour. We're going to spend the rest of the time talking about BD capture and tools. And by the way, I have to say this, I'm extremely passionate about both of those topics. So if I get down some rabbit holes and some tangents, y'all just need to bring me right back in the chat. Okay. Can you send me that citation? Yeah, of course. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to do that. All right, BD and capture. So if you work for a small business, I'm gonna tell you right now, and like, okay, Alexa, what does small business mean? I'm gonna say probably 100 million a year is the cutoff. That's an Alexa number, okay? It's like if your company's pulling in 100 million a year, you're probably gonna have people doing these things separately. You're gonna have people doing BD and you're gonna have people doing capture, because I'm gonna be real honest with you, the more I'm in this industry, the more I'm convinced these are two different skill sets. And it became most apparent to me recently at MetaPhase as we hired one of the best capture people I've ever seen. Like, he's brilliant, y'all. And when I watch him work, I'm like, wow, his skill set's so different than mine. I'm probably on the BD side of the house. So let's talk about it. Business development. You folks are out at conferences. You are out in front of customers. You are the people first in the door. You're the people calling the contracting officers, making friends. You make friends easily. You talk to people in lines that's me. I'm all day long. If I'm standing in a queue somewhere, probably friends with the person in front of me, friends with the person behind me, maybe friends with the person up there, go to the DMV, make a lot of friends. These are BD people, right? Your job is to travel and trips, but let's get to brass tacks. Your job is also to build a pipeline. Your job is to understand, like, 1 year out, 2 year out, 3 years out, what's up and coming, have a pipeline, get that stuff ready, make sure you can pitch it to your executives. Your job is to also gate things early to make sure that you know what you're chasing the right things, right? You're going to be the one putting the gate slides together, especially in the beginning. Capture is really when you start talking about teaming and solutioning and teaming agreements. So the way that I always look at this is like BD people are out doing the things with the people, and capture is doing the things internally to help secure your Pwin. So there are people that are like just straight killers when it comes to like the strategy behind the deal. What is it going to take to win? What is the government really looking for? What are differentiators? How can we get this all positioned in a way that's going to make sense? Does it all have do we have all the parts and pieces that we need? What is the solution? Do we have the solution figured out? Who's the solutions architect? Can we get them working early? What does a pink team draft look like? What does red team look like? What is our graphics concept coming into this, right? If you're over here doing all this, you're not going to be having as much time to be doing all this all at the same time. So now I have to say, when I wrote this slide out, I was like, we kind of have the best job of all time, but it's a lot. It's a lot of work. Capture can make or break the win and how strong the proposal is. This is super big facts, Tan. I mean, you're absolutely right. You can be the best BD person in the world, but if it comes to a team and you don't have what it takes, like you don't have like for example, I'm going to bring up an opportunity right now that's probably on everybody's mind if you do this for a living, especially if you do anything at FedCiv. USDA Stratus, right? USDA Stratus is the government basically gave us 4 bullet points to go off of and said, we're going to create a BOA. And here are 4 bullet points. And it's going to be the biggest deal USDA has ever done. Good luck. Have fun with that. And everybody's like, wait, what? So from the BD side of the house, getting in front of the customers and doing the things and, trying to build rapport and all this stuff and getting the step reviews and the gate reviews going. And then capture is a big piece of it because the customer's not talking. Well, officially. So the capture process is huge. Like, how do you get your teams together, right? Is it going to be a huge infrastructure bid? Is it going to be a SaaS bid, PaaS bid, platform as a service? Like, what's actually happening here, right? So really, the exciting part of our job is that we get to wear both of these hats, but I'm convinced that they're two different skill sets. So when you have people in your company that complement and augment your skill sets, you're probably going to have better outcomes, I think. And I'm extremely grateful for the guy internally that I work with. His name is John Carr, and he's, like I said, he's a straight killer here. So I'm very happy to have him on the team. All right, any questions about BD and capture? I think I kind of painted a pretty descriptive picture here. Okay, cool, we'll keep going. All right, when to do the things. Do we do BD then capture? Do we gate? How often? What about the market intel? What do I do? So much to do, so little time. First thing I want to say is, like, people do a lot of talking about AI, and I do a lot of not listening, because I know that our jobs are safe. This is such a nuanced job, right? It's such a nuanced career where it's like you're part detective, you're part like analyst, you're part, salesperson, you're part, all these different things. Thank you so much, Matthew. I appreciate you. But I put here A, B, BD. Always be doing BD. Always, right? I always hear, like, that guy's my kid's basketball coach. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Always be doing BD. And then capture, I think, should start pretty much once something's clear to gate, right? Once you've gated it, and you have a process around that, then the capture process starts. Like, okay, we submitted an RFI. That's not capture. RFI processes are BD. This is getting in front of the customer. RFI is BD. But once you've gated it, teaming and strategy and solutioning, and all that's capture, right? But you have to be doing this with several opportunities at the same time, which is why I'm saying AI is not going to take over our jobs anytime soon. All right, so cool. Let me start with Intel. You need to build a pipeline first, and then we're going to talk about tools next. So that's how you build a pipeline, is really understanding the who, the what, the when, the where, and how much. And then, as I put here, you gate first, then capture. Gate first, then capture. All right, I think I said that enough times. I used to be a teacher, so I like to repeat it 3 times. BD through proposal. Stay engaged through the proposal process to make sure you answer the so what, why us. So if you remember what I talked about on my previous slide, and if you don't, I'll just go back. This is the voice of the customer. Voice of the customer #1, right? So if I say here, BD, if you don't show up throughout the proposal, you're going to lose the so what, why us. The so what, why us is the make it or break it. You lose, you win on the so what, why us. So if you have the voice of the customer, BD, you need to be in the red teams, you need to be in the pink teams, you need to be in the rainbow teams, whatever they are. You have to stay engaged. All right. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of friendly advice about competitive advantages here. I've noticed throughout my career, and again, this is just Alexa talking, always be direct is something that people really, really appreciate. So like I said, I was on a zillion and 2 calls for Evolve, but I'd always be like, hey, we're pretty far down the line with somebody. We have not signed a TA yet, but we're still working through the details. Would love to chat with you. Let us know what, where you are on it, right? You always want to be the person that others want to work with. And it was really funny as I was writing this, because it's definitely easier said than done, because this is also a high pressure game. So, sometimes things happen and you're like, you have got to be kidding me right now, right? The sass gets high and everybody's feelings are like, woo, let's everybody be dramatic all at the same time. And I'm not going to say I do this perfectly, especially with this one here internally. I want to be the person everybody wants to work with, but sometimes, sometimes things get the better of me, unfortunately. So, but this always works, and being direct, being a straight shooter is something people really appreciate in this industry, because I've been strung along by companies and then dropped at the last minute when I didn't have time to put my teaming agreements together, and I felt some type of way about it. The companies still on my no team list. But and then the other one I want to say is operate from a friend DA. And I say this, if you've ever been on a call with me talking about an opportunity, you'll laugh because I say this, and Dustin's probably like, oh my God, I've heard her say that a million times. But I always say this, if we don't have an executed NDA, and it's okay, we'll get one. That's easy. But I want to know, like, I want you to know when we go into it, you're in this industry, I'm in this industry, we're going to operate as from a friend DA, right? We're friends. You tell me something that's between us. I'm not going to share it. You tell me what your strategy is. I'm not going to share it. I mean, it's good intel. I might start a rumor or two outside of what you tell me, maybe. Like, you know, my favorite thing to do is to spread it, be like, oh my God, you guys, I've heard this is actually coming out HubZone. That's my favorite thing. And everybody goes and panics. It's pretty funny. Anyway, but yeah, respect the game. Don't poach other people's talent and don't hate on the industry. I had a big discussion with my boyfriend about the last one. He kind of works in the emerging tech field, and he struggles with GovCon. You and I have a cone of truth. Yes, ma'am, all day long. But you know, a lot of people. Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate you. A lot of people have a lot to say about the industry, and not a lot of it's positive. So I have to say that, like, those of us that do it for a living and are really passionate about it, it's sort of like a calling for us, because we want to be very good stewards. We want to be partners with the government. We want to do a good job and wear a white hat, per se, you know, persona. So if you're coming at us and you don't like the industry and you don't want to do this, our advice to you is to find a different career. That's just pretty much the beginning and the end of it. We're very passionate. We're passionate about it, all of this. So, all right, next slide. Oh yeah, I gotta move quicker if we're gonna talk about tools. Competitive advantage number 2, target BPA MAC IDIQs. Exactly, Eric, all day long, 40 years and counting. If you're building a small business, you have to have your eyes on the upcoming big BPA MACs and IDIQs. For example, Soup 6 is the hottest GWAC ever to touch down in the government ever. Period. Put a period. It's huge. I'll be at the industry day, the first part. Come see me. But I'll tell you why. So typically, back a long time ago, you'd have to choose if you wanted to be a value-added reseller or if you wanted to be a services company. And those are two very different paths, very different ways of doing business. And Soup was historically a VAR contract, where the government was only buying those licenses or those hardware pieces off of it. They weren't buying services until they're bundling them right together. And so now Soup 6 for the recompete, they're actually having a whole services line added into it. So if you don't have Soup 6 on your pipeline, I would say please take a look at it. Also, one of the biggest Army vehicles is coming up for recompete called ITES 4. And I feel like that's another very attractive IT services vehicle that if you don't have on your pipeline, you should take a look at. And then, of course, last but not least, but probably the most squirrely of all three of these, is the agency level BPAs. Every single agency has them. And I mentioned one earlier, the SEC One IT vehicle, right? It's when the agency's like, you know, we're kind of fed up with having a cadre of cat and dog contracts. So I'm just taking a look and seeing what Michael had said. Yeah. So, you know, they put together their own BPAs. So being ahead of those is a good one. And I'll kind of WikiLeaks something to you guys. I was on an agency level BPA for census the last time around. I think they're going to do another one where it's tiered, where they have like designing of the solutions, executing of the solutions, and then a small business portion. So if you don't have census on your pipeline, I would definitely take a look at that too. All right. Yeah, DoD, ESI. Eric, you know, I would love to. MetaPhase doesn't have any DoD work at all. So that's in the future, expansion plans. Have a plan, SBA joint venture, all small JV. You know, those are two different things, but absolutely, like we had talked about earlier today, joint ventures are here and they're here to stay. So get in front of that, not behind that. Consultants, I think I saw somebody put in the chat that there's a consultant guy out there floating around. Some of the best people in this industry are consultants, and they're straight value adds to proposals for sure. Jennifer, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to help you out with that. No problem. You will need access, and having it is better than having it and not needing it. Yeah, that's all right. Let me keep going. That was about the vehicles. Okay, tools. We're gonna talk about tools for 10 minutes. Another very passionate project of mine. BGov, GovWin, GovTribe, none of these. What tools do you use? And before we move to the next slide, I'll just tell you that like I used to work for Bloomberg, and I also used to work for Input, which now is GovWin. So can you share your LinkedIn information? Yes, I will. I mean, I can. Chloe, could you probably grab my LinkedIn profile and put it in the chat for me? If you could do that for me, that would be super awesome. I appreciate you. Okay. All right, this is pretty much what I expected. Will we be able to watch this again? Mary Beth, yes, absolutely. The slides will be available to everybody as well as the recording, so you can watch this again. So I have to be really honest with you. This is what I expected to see. When I started working for Input, which then became GovWin, thank you, Chloe, I appreciate you. I don't know what C2P is, but we can talk about that later. I expected to see GovWin over here crushing it, because even when I worked there, it was probably about, I'd say 14 years ago that I worked there. They were the market leader then. And you want to know why they were the market leader? I'm going to tell you guys a really quick story about Kevin Plexico. Kevin Plexico, who works for GovWin still today, he's a legend, living legend. He was like an analyst. Captured a proposal. Got it, Gretchen. He was an analyst working for Input back in the day when they used to like type stuff and send it out. And he told the company, he was like, we have to move this online. And the company was like, this internet thing, like, I don't know. So he actually went to the library and like rented some books on like programming. And he was the very first person to ever put an opportunity report online. Kevin freaking Plexico, what a legend. Okay, all right, let's go. Sonia, yes. Hit me up on LinkedIn. We can talk about census. All right. I think as the industry evolves, we have to start thinking about a CRM. Shout out to my folks over at Next Stage. Josh is awesome. He actually, from Silicon Valley, built a tool that hits all of the needs for GovCon. Technomile is out there. It's built on Salesforce. You have Salesforce itself, and you have Pipedrive. This is what Alexa thinks are the best CRM tools in the business. That's all I have to say about that, because I'm going to talk more about the market intelligence tools because I care more. All right. Yeah, exactly. Hit Ton up if you want to know about Next Stage AI. All right. The market intelligence tools, BGov, GovWin, GovTribe, honorable mention, Federal Compass. Federal Compass folks, the two guys that started it, Jim Sherwood, Chad Gansky, they used to work for me, not work for me, goodness, no. They worked with me at Input back in the day. So they kind of have a really good grasp of what the industry needs. It's a pretty cool tool. I'll definitely take a look at it if you're interested in it. I really love how they display the data. They have beautiful displays of data. Yeah, it's also here. It's called Federal Compass. And I'm going to talk a little bit about these three up here that I think are the three most used tools. Bloomberg Government, I was lucky enough to work there in the beginning when they were just building and launching this tool and be part of a lot of the discussions on the front-end development of Bloomberg Government when it was first launched. It is a brilliant tool, but I have to tell you, it was built from a database. So it's a very data-heavy tool, and their biggest challenges have been around putting UX around the data in a way that's like easily accessible. Now, BGov has an army of UXers, like they know what they're doing, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is because GovWin comes at it from a very different angle. They come at it from an opportunity report perspective. So, you're looking at actual opportunity reports. You're sending your competitors, like your teammates, different opportunity reports. Everything's about an opportunity report. You're looking at a report that has the incumbent. It has who's buying it, how much did they spend, what was the competition like. And the thing I think that is most valuable about GovWin, they have the previous solicitation documents attached to the opportunity report. I'm going to say right now, I'm a data person. I mean, even though I'm a BD person, I'm a data person. I love BGov. Soft spot in my heart for BGov. I would use it all day, every day if I could, but MetaPhase uses GovWin. And the competitive advantage that they have of having gone to market in 1979 is the same year as I was born. So I know it's about 44 years ago. I know. Good skincare. Just kidding. Okay, so what I'm saying, though, is GovWin has the competitive advantage of being in the business for 44 years. So they have all of those documents. They have, thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate you. They have all that information in there. So that's where, like, I think if it came down to these two tools and I had to pick one, because 60% data storing, no, but Rachel, I'd totally check it out. 60% of the industry, just like we kind of asked on this, uses GovWin. So BGov, you got some work to do, man. All right. I promised you guys an approach slide, and here it is. Gate everything, smart focus, and smart growth. Approach number 2, bid everything, lose a lot, and win some. Approach number 3, niche down real tight and do one thing and get known for it. Riches are in the niches, y'all. So these are 3 different approaches. All 3 of them work, but it kind of depends on your company. So no matter how you approach the market, have an approach, marry an approach. The challenge is when you start mixing all 3 of these together. So that's my approach slide. And then that was my last slide. We have a few minutes for questions for Q&A. I'm so sorry. Please ask me any questions you want. And I wish we had like 20 minutes for Q&A. But yeah, I have 3 different takeaways here. Number 1 is your gate reviews, your company buy-in, and saying no to an opportunity, saying yes to a different one. And tool number 3 is use the tools. And Ton is right. Yeah, FPDS, fancy FPDS. I was in FPDS yesterday. I'm like, none of these tools are giving me what I need. Let's go back to the source. Go back to 1999 website, FPDS. Cool. Anybody have any questions at all? Any comments? Anybody want to chat about this presentation? I didn't really do a lot of talking about GovTribe. It's the cheap version of these tools. It's okay. That's what I have to say about that. What's your last name? Oh, Rachel, I think Chloe had put my LinkedIn profile link earlier in the chat. So if you want to just, yep, there it is again. Yep, it's there. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you all. And since we have a little bit more time, nobody's asking me any questions. I'm going to go back and talk about this just a little bit more, because I feel like this is something that you could use to change your entire win strategy, right? So let's talk about it for the next 2 minutes. Gate everything, smart growth, focus. This is kind of where MetaPhase is, right? MetaPhase has a plan and wants to grow very smart. Bid everything, lose a lot, win some. That you'll see that happen a lot, right? You'll see companies do this, and I could say one name of a company, but I don't want to get in trouble for saying it. But there's a couple of usual suspects that are super known for doing it this way. What is your advice to market researchers and data-driven professionals to enter the federal, who want to transition to the federal arena? Sarah, my advice, if you are a market research person, data-driven professional who wants to transition to the federal arena, one thing we didn't talk about in this presentation, I could probably do a different presentation on it altogether, is events, right? You cannot really turn around in this town without running into an event or an industry event. So the 2 that I want to mention up front are ACT-IACT. ACT-IACT, I think, is one of the best ways to get in front of industry and government at the same time. If you're DoD focused, or if you have interest in DoD and you want to break in that way, I would say AFCEA is probably my second best option. And so, Sarah, what I would do is I would become a usual suspect at some of these events, start getting really comfortable with the jargon, which, I mean, if somebody else was talking about a glossary, I totally get it. I remember when I first started, I was like, holy moly, wow. So, just kind of getting familiar and making connections. People that do BD for a living are very friendly. We'll adopt you in a minute. Don't even worry. That's my best arena, network junkie. Exactly. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody who listened and came today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And I hope I have a chance to do one of these again in the future. And if I do, I hope you join.
Alexa, we do have one quick question from Lori. Have you come across Easy GovOps before?
I have heard of them. Absolutely. Yeah. They had I didn't mention them because I didn't think they were worth mentioning. Sorry. I said straight shooter. Love you too, Ton.
Any last thoughts, Alexa?
No, do good, be good. Yeah. Keep your head up, everybody, all of industry. The government shutdown's coming, y'all. We can do this.
Okay, well, thank you, Alexa, for sharing your expertise with us today. And thank you, everybody who joined. I love to see a ton of interaction in the attendee chat. That's always great to see. Everybody, if you could make sure to please fill out the survey once the webinar ends, we'd love to get your feedback. And I hope everybody has a great day. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.